One man stands at the edge of a river, the Rubicon. Behind him, 10,000 soldiers. Ahead of him, the might of the Roman Republic. He knows the rule. No general may cross this river with an army. To do so is treason. And yet he whispers words that will echo through history. Alia iacta est, the die is cast. What makes someone risk everything, even the Republic itself, just to prove he's right? Was Julius Caesar a genius of leadership or just an ambitious showman with divine PR? Julius Caesar mastered power not only through war but through psychology, charisma, and strategy. When you picture Caesar, you probably imagine armor, banners, and glory. But his real weapon wasn't the sword, it was storytelling. Long before Instagram, Caesar understood branding. He sent written reports from the battlefield back to Rome, his commentaries, painting himself as the Republic's hero. By the time he returned home, the people didn't ask if he'd broken the law. They asked when he'd rule again. Power isn't only about strength, it's about shaping the narrative. Psychologists say charisma blends power, presence, and warmth. Caesar had all three. He listened, remembered names, and spoke to soldiers like equals. He walked among them, joked with them, and asked about their families. They loved him, and people fight harder for those they love. That warmth wasn't weakness, it was strategy. Modern research confirms that leaders who mix empathy with authority inspire loyalty, not fear. Caesar mastered that balance 2,000 years before leadership books existed. Let's return to that night by the river. The Senate had ordered him to disband his army. If he obeyed, he'd lose power and possibly his life. If he disobeyed, he'd start a civil war. He hesitated, then said, "The die is cast." That was the moment leadership became action. He understood something timeless. Hesitation destroys faster than risk. Sometimes, not choosing is the most dangerous choice of all. Years before this, Caesar had been kidnapped by pirates. They demanded a ransom of 20 talents of silver. Caesar laughed and told them, "You must not know who I am. I'm worth at least 50. The pirates agreed. During his captivity, Caesar acted not as a prisoner, but as their leader. He joined their games, told stories, even scolded them when they were too loud. He promised them he would return to crucify them, and they thought he was joking. When the ransom was paid, he raised a fleet, found the pirates, and did exactly as he'd said. It's a dark story, but it shows something essential about leadership. Caesar never let others define his value. Even as a captive, he controlled the narrative. Leadership begins with how you see yourself. Caesar's political strategy was just as sharp as his military one. He built alliances like the First Triumvirate, with Pompey and Crassus pooling money, power, and popularity. When alliances broke, he adapted. When enemies rose, he forgave them publicly to appear merciful, forcing them to owe him loyalty. That's emotional intelligence used as power. Despite all this brilliance, Caesar was still human. He suffered from epilepsy, was mocked for vanity, and was often buried in debt. Yet he turned every flaw into part of his legend. He knew emotion wins over logic. People might doubt your arguments, but they rarely forget how you make them feel. After years of victory, Caesar returned to Rome as dictator. For a while, it looked like he might save the Republic. But power, when left unchecked, distorts perception. He started believing his own myth. Statues rose in his honor, he wore a crown indoors. He ignored warnings and trusted no one. Eventually, his closest allies Brutus, Cassius, and others turned against him. 23 stab wounds later, the man who mastered power fell victim to it. His death didn't save the Republic, it ended it. Rome soon had an Emperor Augustus who perfected Caesar's system. The story reminds us that you can win every battle and still lose the war if you don't understand your own mind. So what can we learn from Caesar today? Power isn't taken, it's granted by those who believe your story. Charisma isn't magic, it's presence. Leadership demands decision. Inaction kills faster than failure. Adaptation is strength disguised as humility. And above all, remember that no one is immune to their own ambition. We all face our own Rubicons, those irreversible choices that define us. Whether it's a career leap, a personal stand, or a moment of courage, Caesar's whisper still echoes. The die is cast. Leadership isn't about control. It's about commitment. Once you step forward, you can't go back, only shape what comes next. Fortune, as Caesar would say, favors the bold.